Hey there, Lucina. Good to see you.
You're not exactly seeing me yet.
Okay. Now good to see you. Perfect.
Yeah, I'm on an update today and things have improved. I was really stressed this morning. Stamps.com had been making a problem with us making labels for us to ship out books. So that got me down. But then we changed from using the Safari browser to Chrome and it worked.
Oh, good. Good. Yeah, technology is moving so fast, and the cross of planning is breaking down, and nobody can really figure out how to.
But it has a long time to go still. You'll have to ask Genoa when he thinks the actual transition, it could be hundreds of years in the future.
Well, there's definitely a key point after Pluto and Neptune have transited the entire human experiential way. And that's in around 2160. So, that's 130 years in the future. That is the time when Pluto and Neptune have gone through every gate of the human experiential way. So, it absolutely is the case that it will take a long time for humanity to be transformed in the human experience. But there are some very interesting lockstep maneuvers of Neptune and Pluto. They really kind of go in lockstep. It's really an interesting thing that you can see. Like the day after Neptune will leave gate 35, Pluto will go into gate 36, or things like that. And if you look far into the future, you see that this continues for quite some time.
And we went through it for years through the solar plexus, where one after another, the outer planets were going through like 22 and 36, and then some of the others.
Yeah, Pisces and Aquarius. I mean, every gate except for two in Pisces and Aquarius. So all but two gates in those signs are either in the solar plexus or harmonics. So they're in the solar plexus system. It's incredible to see. I'm going to show this graphic that I can find. Just a moment. So I have a graphic from Jan van den Berg that he's made showing the solar plexus. And it's pretty incredible. So,
Are you going to have a bunch of your respite people there tonight?
no, it's Monday, and a lot of people had to leave today or left last night because it was really Wednesday through Sunday, and so we will have one. We have one coming. Hey, Ashley. All right.
We did meet with Topher in the park this
Oh,
afternoon.
wonderful! That's great.
And then it got very cold. But he
Uh,
will be working tonight. I don't know whether he'll be there, but he talked about the Ethiopian guy from Australia that he sat next to last week.
yeah, Sirach will be here. Absolutely.
A very brilliant young man.
He really is.
Yeah.
So bright. Yeah, it's wonderful. You want Uzo?
I mean, I was quite taken aback by that young person. He also sounded like he was very self-educated like you.
Absolutely, and doing a lot of interesting experiments with audio and just very insightful. He's 6124, so really doing a lot.
Really? Is he a mental projector?
No, 2-4 generator. So
Okay.
yeah, yeah. I'm going to show just a little bit of Neptune and Pluto since we were talking about it.
How did your class go today?
Really good. We did the awareness centers and fears of the awareness centers, as well as the senses, basically. Because when you talk about the awareness centers, you're really talking about this triangle that turns into tone at the substructure, smell and taste, the visual
Yeah.
fields, and then
Yeah.
feeling and touch. And so we kind of went into that. This was class 6 of the centers.
You actually did colors and tones too.
Well, I hinted at tone. I didn't really go so much into it because we're doing mostly centers, but I just said it was mostly about understanding the three awareness centers of how different they are and what senses they, right, they are basically accessible from. Like you can sense survival in smell and taste, and what is the spleen about, and things of that nature.
But it is interesting with both the colors and the tones. They work from the spleen to the ajna to the solar
Right,
plexus.
the color as well. Yeah, the color is a very interesting part of it. And we did touch on color a bit. So here I'm going to share, for those just joining, we will be beginning shortly. And in the meantime, I just wanted to show some from the post-conference retreat. Rosita and I were talking about how the changes that we mark with the date 2027 are not really, that's not when the changes occur as much as we enter into a new era in which those changes unfold, and that it will be quite some time until that happens. And I was saying, looking at the key moments of Pluto and Neptune transiting the gates of the human experiential way. And they go in gate 41, gate 30, gate 36, gate 35. Just seeing that those key moments are basically going to also play out in the next 130 years or so. So let's see. These are
That
some of the
looks like
things.
a fantastic slideshow you made.
Thank you. It's available for everyone on Signpost. The link is in the video archive, and it's about
Really?
12 hours of global cycles and base theory
Wow.
that we covered during the post conference. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And I've never understood about anything about the dog.
Well, so this is actually the moment when Neptune transits gate 41, and this is the time when Neptune and Pluto will have transited every
There's a thin concept
gate
we're going on here, so
in the human experiential way. So, yeah, I know I was interested in covering this material. Yeah, and I kind of went through in more detail, looking at each key date. So Neptune entered gate 36, May 9th, 2021. I mean, that was COVID. That was COVID-19, but it was a year later, but it was absolutely an incredible
Like a year
transformation.
and a half actually after
Yeah,
COVID.
yeah, exactly. So it took a year and a half for there to be a boost of the energy and determination to persevere in the face of opposition and true crisis. I mean, that was when everyone. It had already been a crisis, I suppose, but.
Ron, who's up?
I had a very interesting shamanic journey very early in COVID times where I actually saw the coronavirus shape as if it was a crystal that was here to actually help our evolution. It was really a powerful image. It was blue, light blue on a dark blue background, but it had so much light within it. It actually made me feel less scared of the virus.
That's a beautiful vision, and that is the kind of thing we see when Neptune is at play as well, and that it can give us access to the archetypal, which is behind all things. It is actually next year, pretty soon now, that Neptune is leaving gate 36. We'll get to see what it's done.
Yeah. What crisis was being veiled?
Yeah, and what it was operating on, kind of behind the scenes, like a surgeon behind their.
Right.
Yeah. Then, so this is just an example of what I'm talking about. Neptune leaves gate 36, April 10th, 2024. Pluto enters gate 41, April 12th, 2024. Within 36 hours, Pluto is now entering into a gate from the human experiential way after Neptune leaves that gate. So Neptune washes away the old.
What does Pluto move into? 36 as well?
Gate 41.
Oh, 41. Oh, wow.
Yeah, but it's just, I mean, this is what makes it so divinely orchestrated, because you really see how these are gates that are in different parts of the sky.
Is that also when Pluto moves into Aquarius?
Yeah, I guess so, because 41 is Aquarius, so yeah. Then Neptune enters gate 35, August 3rd, 2056, okay. Then it leaves gate 35, May 3rd, 2060, and just a day later, May 4th, 2060, Pluto enters gate 36. So you can't make up this kind of lockstep of the experiential way. And here's just a graphic showing how, and this is from Jan van den Berg, so thanks Jan, the beginning of the dissolving of the human experiential way, when Neptune enters 36. What Ra called the end of experiential diversity.
Huh.
And then,
The end?
yeah, because experiential diversity is such a thing of the cross of planning era. So this is the beginning of the end, but the end of the end won't be until really in the 2100s, in the 22nd century. All right, well, we have a fun topic today, and thank you for joining me for that. We have a really good crew. I see everyone saying hi to Nancy, the kitty cat, Mike's cat. Let me move this back a little bit.
Yeah, I can read it if I
Yeah, we're good. We're fine. So today we're going to talk about. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. So today we're going to talk about the design side, the color, maybe other aspects as well.
Sure.
But just talking about what's on the design side and what are some of our observations. This was brought up by Rachel, who is cold thirst, and she's noticed being thirst on the design side has led to all of these things with her body, like not only enjoying cold food, but no, you want it the other way. The other way. Okay. Yeah, not only enjoying cold food, but enjoying
two more.
just yep. Back over. Yeah. Welcome. So that, for instance, even enchiladas being spicy food, if they are, yeah, perfect. Thank you. If they are cold, sure, it's better, but it's still not really your kind of food. Or like alcohol being a hot, heating kind of element. And so just all sorts of interesting things. I mean, also being thirst, needing more liquids, all of that. So I don't know if we want to just maybe go through color 1 to 6, see where we get. We can always open up to other conversations, but I think as a first topic, maybe just starting with that. And we are joined. Yeah. Oh, please.
Someone said to me about loud flavors and things like that. So
because you're low sound?
Oh, I'm low sound as well.
For people who do have that, to think of it metaphorically sometimes.
Oh, like hot and cold can also be loud and quiet. Interesting.
I don't find that with food itself, but we'll talk about it when we get to the fifth color, because I definitely have extrapolated that into different areas.
But also for Rachel, that the hot and cold food. Yeah.
Well, and I was actually kind of also what I was bringing to that is being a cold thirst person, you know, having that in my nature, like being a cooling to situations. You know, the person that's, you know, single ingredient, they like to take things in one at a time, even if, you know, like one.
So she's saying to generalize, and I'm not sure how well it comes through on the microphone, but to kind of generalize to behavior as well of, you know, the single ingredient person taking in one thing at a time. For you, actually cooling down situations, like people might be about to fight, and you kind of come in and have a soothing balm. But also, cold can be stimulating, and you can have a chilling. Just from knowing you, you can give a little. You know, I mean, cold is on the nervous.
Rachel.
Well, it's on the nervous side. It's on the nervous side. So it can be cool to see these how you might make people nervous because you're so cool and calm in that way, but it's not really calm. I guess it's
cold determination.
Cold,
Well, doesn't that mean then that your system runs hot, so you need to cool it down?
Yeah.
So wouldn't her presence have a heating?
That's a good point.
I don't know. But do I make people nervous? I mean, we're calm.
I make people nervous.
I don't know if I make people nervous. I can see how being calm determination. Calm refers to what is healthy for me. It doesn't necessarily mean I will be calm, but at the same time, I do become calm.
Well, have you the trajectory with Ra, right? His whole tone of voice and speaking style changed over the years as he moved more toward calm. You know, he had an edginess, kind of an edgy, nervous energy in his voice. You know, so one of the things that happens is we don't just transfer with PHS to the opposite, but we're also often on the wrong side, right? And so I've even seen with you, Jonah, like I think that you've calmed down a lot just in the few years that I've known you, you know?
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So
Yeah, that's true.
I think it's great to think about this more figuratively, for sure. You know, so I think everyone's probably pretty familiar with PHS, but we don't need to do any kind of background. Why don't we go through first colors and just talk about your experience? Who has a first color internal determination? Anyone here?
Any trans?
Either alternating or consecutive?
Amara does. Yeah.
And
alternating.
You're alternating. You're the great multitasker, right? So multitasking is not a real thing, but multitasking means like you've got a lot of projects going and you dip in and out of them. There's a lot of things, you know, at play.
But that said, I also have recently realized like I cannot listen to music while I work. I can't.
Yeah.
I have to do one thing at a time.
You do one thing
I
at a
have
time,
lots
but
of different
multiple one
projects
things.
going.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
But yeah, having a single ingredient. I mean, what are the repercussions on the body? I can tell you that since studying Steve Rhodes, I have a lot of new understandings of this. That he calls it low resilience, and so this would be a body that has a very strong, sensitive impression of past experiences that take a really long time for that impression to kind of go away. Meaning, something when you're 70, you might be thinking about something that happened when you were 12. I mean, there can be this long-term effects of, and this need for protecting the body physically, whereas having a sixth color mind, the highest resilience, you're kind of immune to being offended by someone disagreeing with you. So they can say they don't agree, that's fine, but the need for familiarity of people in your life and just kind of how homogenizing the world is an interesting point that people say, just get back out there, just pick yourself back up and keep going, or someone who's, you know, first color on the design side and they break up and they have a lot of grieving, it might take them years to grieve. Mm-hmm. Someone else might pick themselves back up and get right back out there. And it's okay to take more time instead of this idea of I need to be, and especially if your nodal environment is something like valleys or shores, because that is kind of the highest resilience environment where there's a lot of change. You're on the shores, people are coming and going all the time on vacation and constant change of people. But first color needs very few people, a small, close group of friends. That's perhaps one of the reasons why this winter respite has been so much nicer for you, and I think all the kind of lower color. They're not bored just hanging out with nothing to do. They're happy to get to connect and make friends with people and kind of connect more deeply. Yeah. Yeah.
So Jonah, I'm curious, I'm not a Steve Rhodes expert. How do you reconcile the low resiliency on the design side with the high on the personality side? How does that play
It's
out?
the only only transitional profiles have that. So only the 1-4s and the 2-5s and the 3-6s. And that is something that makes them unique. And it's so unusual because you only really get the combination of basically first and second color or second and third color, third and fourth color. These are all very close to each other. It's like somebody who maybe is a little more resilient on the personality side, but
which is typically the case.
Much.
PHS and motivation are usually just one-off, statistically.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I think it's also interesting that the personality side is the higher one. That it is an interesting observation that the design, but I guess it's not always, right? Because there will be, it's the higher in this case, but it goes, it goes fear, appetite, and then it goes, it goes fear, taste, right? Or no, it's like a hope, taste.
You're talking about
the personality leading in the so you have a sixth color personality and a first color design, but usually the design leads. Like we have third color personality, fourth color design. Yeah. So it's like backwards from us. Like it's showing that really the transitional profiles are so unique that even their PHS is backwards because everybody else has a more resilient design than their personality. Like we're more sensitive in our personality to our feelings getting hurt than we are to our actual design being injured. But then you get to this transitional profile and it's like this glass cannon where they have the infinite ability of innocence to just say, you're old, you're going to die soon, or just whatever, like innocent blurting out, this person's doing this, that person's doing that. Be totally resilient. Yeah. But then this design that's made for very special people and for a small group of people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a vulnerability in these transitional profiles, right? And Ra actually said they're being phased out, I mean, not that they won't occur, but sort of the program's like, yeah, we're done. We got what we wanted from you.
Yeah.
You know,
Interesting.
It's difficult to be innocent in this world, right?
I think that's true.
Yeah, and it's also difficult to, you know, there's no society in the world that separates food quite like you need, you know. So there's always big consequences health-wise with the first color. You stand so much more to gain, right? Because you just haven't been nourished properly your entire life, you know. And what exactly is going to get affected, how much will get affected, depends upon color resonance with the PHS, you know. And so that's another topic, but. Yeah, I usually, you know, first colors, my mentor's a first color, Kamut Kabir. She had migraines for her whole life. She discovered, you know, she was introduced to PHS in her early 50s. And those migraines after 6-9 months, something like that, went away permanently. So huge gain. And then she actually said that she didn't see herself in transference as much, which she's alternating like you, which would be this kind of stand and hover and eat out of cabinets or the fridge and pick at things or on the go and stuff like that. She was more making really complicated food. She was like, I was making smoothies and stir fries and just elaborate salads. Everything was really, really complicated, right? And she had a cancer crisis in her mid to late 40s, and she was like, I don't deserve this. Like, I'm a vegetarian. I eat a lot of raw food. I eat only organic. How did I get this? You know? So it really challenges these types of homogenized health myths, right? That we all kind of adhere to. And yeah, like I said, PHS really worked wonders for her, and she went on to really run his PHS program.
Could you just do a little bit of analysis just for a minute? We won't do this with all of them, but just because I happen to have Amara here, and I would just love to just
Yeah,
look
just
at a little bit.
scoot that closer for me.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, let's take a look here. Well, you're a very unusual case in terms of PHS, Amara. So the only thing that it's affecting is hydration, design Neptune.
Yeah.
Right? So are you properly hydrated? Right? And Ra, his example of that was people could see, you know, so let's take a step back a second, okay? So design Neptune, design Mercury, Venus, and Jupiter are called calling card gates. Calling card gates. They signify to other people if you're healthy or not, okay? The other gates on the diagonals, that's something only you would know, right? Only you would know if you have, for example, you know, asthma or detoxification issues or body temperature issues or menstruation issues or joint inflammation issues, right? These are kind of more hidden, subdued. But the hydration, Ross said that people pick up on this like very subconsciously. They'll just kind of notice like the plumpness of your skin. Kind of a weird thing to say, but again, kind of a very subtle subconscious level, we kind of can notice these things about other people. So that's what PHS would affect. Because you're so open on that side, this has been a running conversation this week about people who are very open on the design side. When I'm saying open here, I mean you have very little color resonance in your design lunar planetary square, okay? And so a lot of color resonance is fixedness, it's consistency, it's more locked in. You only have one activation there that resonates with your internal determination. Therefore, what we know is that your body is actually very susceptible and open to being affected by other people. So, for example, Marianne Winiger is an example of this. And so she's a really great barometer of whether you're correct or not because she's feeling it in her body. This is irregardless of what's going on the surface, okay? You could have 9 centers defined, but you only have one activation there with color resonance or 0, and you're going to have a very susceptible body. Orion Ohev is an example of this, and we just looked at that. He's a very defined design, but he really relates to needing to do somatic practices to really ground in himself and find safety and centeredness in himself because he's picking up on so much from other people. Additionally, he's a quad right, so that's also a factor. But it's really hydration for you, and then in terms of your environment, let's take a look. So that is affecting a couple different things here.
The bottom row.
The entire bottom column. And so one thing is your detoxification. You know, detoxification occurs through various systems, and I can't pinpoint which one it is for you. I have this issue as well. My methylation channel is affected, and I have designed Saturn in gate 47. And so what I can track that detoxification issue to is a cloudiness in my mind, right? A fog in my mind. It actually affects my mind. It affects my thinking. For you, it's in your sacral. It's in this capacity to care, right? To nurture those that you care for, right? And so somehow that is being affected and undermined when not in the correct environment. The correct environment would enable you to do that. But yeah, detoxification. So somehow you're not eliminating what you need to be eliminating. When we look
have
at
that MTHFR.
yeah, I have MTHFR as well. It's a genetic variation that inhibits your detoxification channels. And so I have tracked MTHFR with Design Saturn in that regard. Design Jupiter is your aura. So this is actually what people pick up on when they meet you. Subconsciously, they're like, oh, you're a very intuitive person, you know? And, you know, it's part of this whole column. That center column that's vertical is all about, do people really understand you? You know, are you really getting through to other people? And so in some way, your ability to get across who you really are to other people is dependent upon your environment, right? Wrong environment, it's just not going to click. It's not going to get across. And then finally, Pluto, which is the in-breath, inhalation. You know, so this often tracks with asthma, right? Asthma, some sort of breathing difficulties, things along those lines. You have the in-breath and the out-breath affected here. So what I've often seen in that case is maybe difficulty clearing colds from your lungs. Strangely, resonance with Design Pluto tracks less for people than the other activations. I don't know why, but it does correlate with asthma. Have you ever had any subclinical or any kind of lung?
I used to get bronchitis a lot when I was a kid, but
Yeah.
I grew out of it.
I have the same thing. So I've designed Pluto, and that was my experience as well. I actually have a little bit of subclinical asthma. So yeah, those are some different areas that are being affected.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that, James. That's a really interesting way of analyzing some of the. Yeah, no, it's something that I always get curious about, but I don't want to do the work. That's kind of what I was just saying earlier, because I have an undefined head and ajna, so I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Someone should look into that.
Jonah, you've looked into so many obscure things. I can't believe you're saying that about people.
Well, because what I do is I was realizing having an undefined center is bringing awareness to it. So having an undefined ajna, bringing awareness to what other people have thought about.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to actually doing the labor of thinking, which is its own thing,
yeah,
I'd rather think about thinking than actually think. You know?
Yeah, I gotcha. That makes sense. Well, let's move to a second caller and pull up an example chart. If anyone's in class.
Oh, if you have
I
any comments, please.
I wanted to share my chart if it was possible.
Please do. I would love that. Yeah. Do I have you? I think I might have you
No,
from.
but I have
Oh, if you have it,
it
then I
ready
can.
if you let me share.
Yes, I absolutely will. Let me. Do I just make you the host? I guess.
Oh wait.
No. Do I?
No. Amara thought that she was in the database. She might be in a folder.
Oh, you might be in the folder, but if you have one, can I'll just
I
share.
have it, yeah.
Perfect.
By the way, hi Amara.
Hi, Lucita.
Yeah. Okay, you should be able to share now.
Okay. Yeah, I'm another 5'2", and Amara and I have been peer counseling because we're both 5'2".
Okay. So, from a PHS standpoint, Letitia is consecutive.
Lucita.
Lasita is consecutive as opposed to alternating. And there's several things at play here. Let's see where to start. Well, the first is actually her body temperature is affected. And Ra thought that this would usually be imperceptible. Funnily enough, I would say 9 times out of 10, when I tell this to people, they say, yeah, I usually run hot or I usually run cold. It's the Pluto that's the most elusive for whatever reason. So have you noticed that you can be a little hot or a little cold? Anything along those lines?
Very much on the hot side usually. Although
Yeah.
I haven't been enjoying this winter, but usually hot.
Right. And so the mutation occurs in the Mars on both sides, right? So physically speaking, it's that the 18.6 is that Buddhahood. It's the, I can't remember the keynote for it. It's the...
Bodhisattva? No.
The Bodhisattva. I don't think it's
That's
the
what they
Bodhisattva.
nickname it that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a nickname.
So
No, actually, Bodhisattva is the 17.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
My bad.
It's Buddhahood.
Right,
Buddhahood.
Buddhahood. Yeah, I was right.
Child.
Yes. So, anyhow, and the other activation that's being affected is the design moon. Right now, design moon, everything flows into the design moon, right? So imagine a line from design Pluto moving up diagonally to design Mars and landing in the design moon. And similarly, horizontally from design Uranus, Mercury to the moon, and vertically from design Saturn, Venus up to the moon, right? So there's this flow. So the moon is really this focus. It's a very important activation in the lunar planetary square. And so it concerns your holistic sense of well-being. So when not following your PHS, there can be this feeling with people that have resonance there and they're like, I don't feel hardy. I feel kind of crummy. I feel sort of fragile, And so it's either, or do you feel hardy? Do you feel robust, right? Or do you feel more fragile? That's one dimension of it. The other thing that I have tracked is menstruation issues with women that have that. And there can also be a body weight component here. So there can be instability in the body weight, or I struggle to gain weight. I'm really underweight, or I struggle to lose weight. There's some sort of an issue in that regard in many cases with design moon resonance.
So it's only Mars and the moon, and they're both first color. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing
Yeah.
else is resonant with that. Yeah.
Yep. So, those two. And then with the artificial shores resonance here, we have more. We have a lot more, actually. So the correct environment's very important for you. Are you looking at a transitional topography every day? It doesn't have to be a shore per se, but are you on the edge of the country? Or are you looking at, you're in a valley, you're looking at the mountains, or vice versa. Something like that is very important. 6 is always looking for transition. What's coming next? What's around the corner? What's on the horizon? And so with design Uranus resonance there, this speaks to inflammatory issues, right? So arthritis is often indicated, right? And it really is about mobility. That's the keynote here. And so your mobility could be compromised when not in the correct environment, right? And it often shows up as joint inflammatory issues, right? And then your design Mercury, here we're looking at thyroid implications, right? Thyroid implications as well as speech communications. It's not what you're saying, which would be on the personality side. It's the tone or the timbre of what you're saying. It's saying what you're saying in a way that other people can actually hear it, right? Which isn't a conscious choice. Is your biology well suited for that, disposed toward that, right? And so there's implications, again, to being heard, thyroid. You can even find speech impediments or just maybe subclinical, not exactly a full-blown speech impediment, but a struggle to communicate effectively with design Mercury resonance there. Just want to take a pause. How is this landing so far?
Some of it may be relevant. I think people often think I'm more arrogant than I am because I'm actually very insecure. So that in terms of the voice, I can sound like, I do have 23.1 as my conscious Mercury. I can sound very insistent and very pushy, but actually I'm feeling very shy and very withdrawn, and then I want to run away and hide. So that might be something about the voice thing. I haven't noticed arthritic problems. Hopefully won't. So we'll see. But thank you very much for the...
I'm not finished. There's actually other things we can get into here. But so there's various things affecting your voice. And I would add that there is resonance between your internal determination, right? That first color, internal determination, as well as the fourth color, personality, Mercury, right? So that does mean that talking about health is something that will happen from, with some regularity. It also means that not following your PHS will affect how you communicate. And we have to remember that 23 is across from the 43, which is a fear gate. And that fear is this fear of being rejected. Like, gosh, I have this insight that I want to kind of share, this mutative, individual, unique insight. Do I dare share that with other people? Will they accept me or will they reject me?
Interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome. So again, design, Mercury, this tone, the timbre of the voice. Is her voice effectively communicating who she actually is? Could be thyroid implications. So again, that's all tied to the correct environment. We've talked about design Uranus. Neptune is also implicated here. So is she being properly hydrated? We've covered that with Amara. Design Venus. So this is complexion. So this could be susceptibility to any type of skin issues, eczema, rosacea, dry skin, oily skin, anything along those lines. It's also sex appeal, Ra says, and the way that the body conveys sexual arousal through the flushing of the skin. So very strange kind of obscure implications here.
It's interesting that doesn't have anything to do with getting across to other people. It's like Jupiter, Mars, Mercury, that center column, how we reach the other. It's a little bit off to the side there with the Venus.
100%. Yeah. And again, design Pluto, that kind of lung implication that we talked about that, again, strangely, I don't have as many people that really click with that, but I think that a lot of colds, things like that, things that get stuck in the lungs, could be asthma, something along those lines. Let me look at it in totality here. So, your physicality is very affected, the musculature, the joints, and so on, all in that top horizontal row. So the body might just feel achy, it's not feeling so mobile, it's feeling kind of stuck, it's feeling kind of stodgy, right? And that is both with PHS and environment implications. Middle row is all hydration. So there's big hydration implications here. Are you retaining enough liquids? Are you retaining enough fluids? Very important. And less of an implication on the bottom column. Let me take a look at something else here. One interesting thing is that if you look at design Saturn, design Venus, and design Moon, if you start at Saturn, which has to do with detoxification and pollutants building up, eventually that shows up in your skin, right? Eventually your skin is compromised, which is that design Venus, right? And then eventually it affects your holistic health. Whoops.
No, that's fine. I think we're good.
I just need to see the chart.
Oh, okay. It stopped sharing. I see. But I get what you're saying.
Did she drop out?
She maybe got knocked here. I will.
Okay, well, we were pretty much wrapped up anyway. So that's perfect.
Yeah, but I can also. No, that was a good place to end. I also just have it here. But no, that is interesting. Like you can kind of tell a story of
the story of the flow.
Yeah, how it actually moves from one area to the next. I love that. Well, and so we saw first color body. We only had the first color matched, which is to be expected because it's more common, but to be matched with the sixth color personality. I was also thinking while, you're back, Lucita. Wonderful.
Yeah,
So,
I ran out of charge, so I had to
yeah, it happens to me. Classic
Your
generator.
PHS says you might run out of charge. I'm just kidding.
Classic generators. Yeah, we just no, I'm joking. But I also was going to comment that when you were saying that, and you've never, for the record, you never seem arrogant to me at all. But innocence, being kind of highest resilience, can just be so secure in their tolerance of different viewpoints and different opinions that can be a real dichotomy with the design side, first color, which really needs familiarity in small groups and really is not for everyone. And so being in a big group can just be like, I don't want to be exposed to all these different people. But at the same time, you have this interesting thing. It's really nice we have the internet. It's like, how do you get differing opinions and people arguing with each other and not necessarily agreeing, but not having to deal with it at a personal level, at a physical level? So interesting there.
Thank you.
So Nancy,
Thank you.
Nancy asked if we could look at her chart. Well, what color?
Nang, she's a fourth color.
Determination.
She's nervous.
So let's do that when we get up to fourth color.
Yeah, we'll get there, Nang, for sure.
Let's do that.
So second colors. Whose taste?
Krista.
Krista.
Taste on touch.
Oh
No, your touch cognition. Taste PHS.
Closed or
yeah,
Closed.
yeah, closed taste. Yeah.
Okay.
We have one taste person.
One taste person.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's. Well, we can pull up her chart or not if you
And
want.
also Name. Yeah. Also Name. So
Yeah.
either or. Do you have your chart? Oh, and so is Casey, and so is Pockets. Who has their chart handy that we can make? Would you have your chart?
Closed.
Oh, it doesn't
Do
matter.
you have your chart
Doesn't matter.
handy, Nami? Can I just make you the host? Great.
Or could we hear some of the non-digestion parts of what it means to be open closed?
Well, yeah. Let's ask everyone first before we look at the actual analysis. Sorry, I'll get out of the way, Mike. Mike just asked, can we look at the non-digestive parts of being open or closed to taste? So
The
any
behavioral
comments?
stuff.
Right, because
and-
we
Yeah.
talked about that with the
Yeah.
consecutive.
So
Sure.
let's
Yeah.
just open it up to that. So Pockets, Casey, Name, anyone remotely.
Yeah.
Do you have things that you've noticed about being taste? Like you've noticed yourself being closed kind of to people or closed, like kind of almost like a second color theme, like discerning, discriminating. I mean, certain people not being. Yeah. I mean, I guess the
Well-
kind of familiarity and also how, like you have a taste for very few. that you like.
Sure. One thing I notice is that, I mean, it's almost the experience when I'm with second color people is that they're loyal. They really, if you're friends, they want to really hang on to that friendship because you're their taste and they're very specific. And of course, it's not really about loyalty, but that's kind of how it, it sort of comes across or how the mind interprets it.
Yeah. No, I like that a lot. Oh, I see what Nami's been up to. She's been crocheting. She crocheted all of our passes this year, laminated and crocheted. It was so wonderful. Everyone at the HDHD conference got such a sweet surprise gift. So anyone have any comments on second color observations? Otherwise, we can jump into your body graph analysis, Nami, if you'd like. Unless there's any comments first.
Sorry, you want my chart up on the screen? I can
Yeah,
put it up on
let's do it. I was just seeing if anybody has anything they've noticed, like maybe Casey, do you have anything you've noticed about being taste?
What does it mean to be?
Yeah.
I think the question for today is not just the implications health-wise, how it affects different systems and different processes in your body, but what are those behaviors that go along with the PHS? How are you? Because it's how you're taking in life itself, all life experience. Right?
Yeah, and it's fine to actually give it a minute too, because this is kind of an imaginative,
it's contemplation.
deconstructive exercise. Would anybody like more USA? While we it's pretty tasty.
The close taste,
Give me a
I've
little
never
blush.
had food poisoning. I
Yeah.
can't say I've ever had it.
Krista comments that she has never had food poisoning in her entire life. Something in you was like, nope, before you.
Yeah, no.
I wonder if Terrence McKenna was close taste, because he said his entire life he had this psychic ability to know what would make him sick.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
interesting.
I wonder
Yeah.
if that's a taste thing as well, because it is kind of connected to intuition and.
Sure.
You had said? Yeah, heard. I heard murmuring.
I think quitting things is easy with closed taste.
Winning
It's
things.
quitting things.
Quitting
If I-
things.
If
Quitting.
I
I see.
decide that I no longer have a taste for it, and it's a
Okay.
decision. It's a decision I make. I don't have a taste for it anymore.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Interesting, yeah.
And that could literally be distasteful to me.
Yeah.
Right, something just becomes kind of gross to you. Like, I wonder if taste is actually related to abjection, which is a term. I know, Mike, we've talked a bit about abjection with Julia Kristeva and just this kind of fundamental psychological experience of disgust that you don't necessarily have as a little baby. You learn disgust.
Yeah.
You learn what to be disgusted by, and I wonder if taste also relates to that. Like, this is
Yeah.
a body that can.
I've heard that seasonality or really fresh food is a thing for taste people.
Seasonality or fresh
Yeah.
food is a thing
And
for
my
taste
mom's
people, is what
taste
Ashley says.
cognition,
Yeah.
And then she's high sound, so I think often she'll transfer to taste, but taste cognition.
She's high sound and transfers to taste, but
She
yeah.
grew up on a farm and she can't stand leftovers. She likes
Can't stand
fresh
leftovers. That is interesting. I will eat leftovers for days and days
Yeah,
and
me
days.
too.
Yeah, but I'm marinating my leftovers.
I would be the one that will tell you if
Actually,
somebody
you're-
has changed a recipe.
Yeah, you've mentioned this.
Yeah,
how
somebody
you
changes
don't
a
want
recipe to
leftovers.
things.
You know, but also the recipe
Oh.
thing. So this is an
Like,
interesting
or
point.
if,
Yeah, Chris.
things tasted different. Like we are growing the GMOs and all that kind of stuff. We are growing our food differently. It
Yeah.
tastes different.
No, taste. I have taste cognition, and I noticed that as well. I was in the UK and I was eating some things, and it was kind of like, this just, even here too, but I was kind of starting to notice just tastes different from when I was in London when I was younger. And I don't think it's just, I mean, obviously I have a more sophisticated palate,
Yeah.
but also I'm like, wow, this is so interesting how just the quality of food across the,
Mhm.
yeah. Okay, well, let's take a look at your chart now, Name. I think that was a good, yeah, and of course, if anyone does have comments, to jump in as we go with anything they've noticed using.
I had one idea.
Oh.
My sister is closed taste, and I just noticed she has these really intense friendships, and then they're over.
Intense friendships and then they're over. That kind of, yeah, there's a parallel and a distinction. The parallel with the first color of needing that smaller group of people, which also makes me wonder if appetite, digestion benefit from having similar foods or more familiar foods or things like that. You know what I mean? Like similar to how we say for taste, I wonder if the familiarity with a smaller set of foods might be healthy. But then also just the difference there of the closed, the no and how that, yeah.
The sudden ending thing could be so many other things in the chart. A cycle could be completing. Maybe they get in an altercation and 49's at play and she cuts them out. I mean, there's so many different factors, but yeah.
Yeah, well, let's take a look here. So let me, I'll move the icons here. And so James, maybe you can take a look at the design side and we see that second color.
Yeah, taking a look here.
and
Okay, so
it's-
Mars is implicated, and so is Pluto
And Neptune.
and Neptune. Yeah.
Yeah, Mars,
So,
Pluto, Neptune. There's three.
Hydration's a big thing, Name. You know, and again, Ra's. Here, can you scoot that there a
Yeah,
second?
there we go.
Yeah.
Got it.
The hallmark for him was it shows up in your skin in some way. You know, and that makes sense because skin is implicated here with design Venus. You know, there's a flow there, right? But we're talking about hydration in design Neptune, body temperature in design Mars. So temperature can be off, hot or cold. You know, no way to determine which that would be for you. And you know, it's, are you retaining enough liquids, right? And do you have any sense of this? Do you have any sense of hydration being an issue for you?
I do. I noticed that the whole salt thing.
Right.
I tend to like salty foods, but it's that I also have a thyroid thing. So what I'm connecting the dots with is because of this thyroid, my eyes push out maybe more than they would have before the thyroid thing. So what I notice is if I have salty foods, I'll wake up the next morning and it's like my eyes don't have enough lubrication. So if I've overdone it on the salt, then my eyes are kind of struggling a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I also notice it with other things, but I'll keep it. I'll leave that private. But yeah.
Got it. Sure. Yeah, salt's quite a thing for you with gate 18 and with both your color being a second color and having that second tone cognition. So yeah, getting that balance right is really important. But yeah, so hydration is a big thing in terms of your PHS, and then obviously, as we've said, with Pluto, it's this in-breath, lung capacity, lung health, etc. Is there anything you want to speak to there?
Huh. Well, when I was young, I had a lot of like bronchial things.
Yeah.
But more recently, maybe from being in your educational containers, I've really been tracking my solar plexus. When I'm dipping into some emotionality, it's like I can't get a deep breath. There's some, like heaviness that's sitting on my chest. So I don't know if that's pointing to what you're referencing.
It might be a different thing, but yeah, I've had a lot of bronchial infections when I was a child. That seems to be the story that surfaces around design Pluto. Remember, in terms of stress, that does affect your thyroid. It does affect your throat, right? And that's a personality Venus feature that you've got there with the fifth line, right? And so we explored that pretty in depth in the analyst training. So stress is very much connected to the thyroid situation that you have. Yeah, let's look at now.
Can I ask about when you say the thyroid, because the thyroid's gone now. but I'm noticing anyway. So from your perception with thyroids, can you still have like the thyroid, even though the actual organ or the gland is out, can it still kind of have an impact?
I couldn't responsibly speak to that. I don't know. There's not enough data to speak to that. There are other implications from a fifth line that I can definitely say could be implicated, which is your neocortex, right? Your neocortex in some way, and just your ability to speak. When you are stressed out, your communication can be compromised, undermined, challenged in some way, shape, or form. What's going on with energetically what fills the space of your missing thyroid? I don't know. It's a great question.
Yeah, and I would just point out one of the things that might be interesting for people to look into is when you look at what hormones and neurotransmitters are implicated by the gates, and just maybe doing research on when people have had organs and glands removed. Do they still have those neurotransmitters and hormones associated with that gland? If so, then the function is still being fulfilled in part holistically because it's still being synthesized. It's kind of like you're still producing the same chemical cocktail, because in some ways I see the body graph as this energetic recipe for what chemicals to produce. And it's really interesting how that works, how some people are going to produce a lot of hormones, pheromones, neurotransmitters, all this stuff. Others won't, and then you go in the aura with that person and you're producing it too. That's what we call conditioning.
Right.
And it really is this amazing X-ray into the chemical cocktails that we make each other produce. And of course, it's not that someone with a gate activation or a center defined is going to make the other produce the exact same chemicals, because they might produce chemicals of peace or chemicals of anger, so to speak, frustration or
The
satisfaction. It's
receiving
very
body
different.
may not have the capacity to replicate them exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. So I just see that this whole science of what we call metaphorically chemistry is also literally chemistry in a way that we might not realize using that term, right? And that we do have an electromagnetic connection with each other and other conditioning that affects each other's chemistry. Comments? Anything?
No, we were just making jokes that we're next.
Oh, okay. You're next? Okay, great. Quadrites in the back. All right. we had this was such a quadrite heavy winter respite. It was a nice 6 quadrites.
I loved it. My right brain loved it.
Yeah, no, it was really good.
In Name, environmentally, there's a lot of implications. I don't want to get into this every time with everyone like in depth, but just to restate some things I've said, your mobility could be affected by you're in the right environment. You live in Santa Fe, New Mexico. You're in a mountain, all right? So, unless your home is a cave, or something like that, you're in a mountain environment. But your mobility could be affected. Your thyroid. Oh, well, there you go. There's another example of that. Your thyroid is implicated with Design Venus. So, in addition to that, on the Design Mercury.
Yeah.
Yes. So, in addition to the stress, the way that expresses with personality Venus, there's implications in Design Mercury. And then again, menstruation. How do I feel? And how do I feel holistically? And body weight. Am I a little underweight? Am I overweight? All that with Design Moon. Detoxification, compromise with Design Saturn. So a lot of implications. Really, there's a lot of implications to your environment, especially. But holistically, I think you've got 7 of the 9 that are resonating. So PHS and environment are really important for you. Ra would say that that's a good thing. He would say that means if you eat correctly and you're in the right place, you're going to wake up. This is Ra talking, in all of his crisp, definitive, hyperbolic kind of statements. The design side's a platform for consciousness. And he would say, well, just do those right things and you're supporting your conscious development.
Well, and what's interesting about that is, to me, that amplifies or exclamation points on my undefined G. Like if I don't like a space, then I don't return to it.
Right.
So kind of the taste piece is like, it has to be, a lot of things have to line up for me to want to do something. And so I feel pretty picky. And, when it comes to like taste, like my breakfast has been the same for the past 20 years, and it's not very sexy, but I love it. So
What is it?
that
What is
my
it, by the
one?
way? I'm just kidding. You don't have to tell me.
No, I'm curious.
Yeah, what
Well,
do you?
It's buckwheat groats, so that's soaked seeds, yogurt, toasted pecans, fresh fruit, and a roasted sweet potato, and it just becomes
Wow.
this whole big mush.
That's some taste there.
Well, I have my own little pet theory with taste, which kind of touches on what you mentioned earlier, Rachel, about or was it Ashley mentioned seasonal food? Yeah, but it's that what we get at the surface of modern culture and kind of contemporary, like, ooh, bespoke Portland style, everything. All of these are using the same archetypal building blocks we study in human design, and that's just the normal kind of homogenized version of what is actually taste, which is like which is like really getting the best, like picking out, like I learned this just last year or a couple of years ago, that there's actually different grades of fruit. And I didn't know this until when COVID happened. I was able to order food. I was able to order restaurant grade fruit. It's so much better than grocery store grade fruit. I was amazed. It was like these like platonic ideal of an apple or something. And it's a little more expensive, but honestly, I want like A grade, food promo magazine grade fruits and stuff. Yeah. That is taste. That is, and I'm okay to transfer because I'm fourth color. So
just beware of the one.
I think the other thing that's interesting is I was a farmer for 10 years, and I totally fell into that. And like I have 2 garden beds at my apartment now, and it's like if I can bring in an herb and add it to my food, it's like my food just knocked up, so many other levels.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Take me to the farmer's market and I can pick out the best food. Yeah, I've got that down.
The other thing I'll say is that we are in an era of sound, the 5th color. Okay, if you think about it, and it's gonna favor the left fixed expression of that because it's a left centric world. Even though we're now all mixed, there's still this left hangover, this left tendency, right? And so that means that we're in a world where we tend to eat in a loud environment. You got to restaurants, most of them are loud, there's a real din, And so when we transfer collectively, we get to the health food trip, right? Sort of your health food thinking is second color stuff. It's like, oh, I need to eat seasonally, I need to eat organic, I need to eat this very particular stuff, so on and so forth. And that higher trigram of determinations transfers to preoccupation with what we're eating when it's really not about the what, it's about the how. Oh,
I also just love this idea. I don't know if this is something you meant in that, but that 5th color is like collective and universalization. So when you want to see how the collective collectively transfers, you start with the 5th color. It's kind of funny to think of the collective as the cacophony of high sound voices, and how it transfers to thinking I'm going to solve it by eating something specific.
Right.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of
fun. Probably for time's sake, we should move to the 3rd.
Yeah, no, we absolutely should. I just wanted to kind of read a couple of the comments. There's a comment from Lasita that her 11-year-old grandson, who's severely autistic, has a 2nd color on the design side, and that he was first tone, so that would be open taste, right? First tone, the left variable of that. And yeah, it is interesting. Autism, I like how Christo Balthazar writes it, AWE-tism, like we're in awe, and he calls it Down syndrome, Dawn syndrome, because it's the dawn of a new age. And these are things that are emerging in this development of new consciousness.
Precursors to the raves.
But then she's saying, food can be a big issue. Well, dealing with autism and then having the specifics around not wanting to eat or not having, if anything, maybe it shows that autism being related to the solar plexus has something to do with truth, and that people who are living their truth more are more resistant to being told to eat what other people are eating when they're 2nd color, maybe, most people are just kind of just give in to it, but it may be someone who is severely autistic does have some connection to the solar plexus that makes them more true to their PHS. It's an interesting question. So, all right. So and then a comment from Casey. Her breakfast has been the same for 3 years. She found it right when she found out about human design. That's perfect. The question from Lucita. Casey, what do you eat for breakfast? Oh, yeah. And then just in terms of autism, Lucita mentions that he's pre-verbal. Yeah, I actually had a partner whose 15-year-old son was pre-verbal, autistic, nonverbal, and it was so interesting communicating without words, and I realized how much had to do with aura and so on, but also how much is out of our control because he was kind of a weather vane for what was going on. And and also his own biochemistry, to where some days he was the sweetest person you ever met, and other days he was hell on wheels. And it was just, you didn't really know what you were going to get there.
Yeah.
So Casey's breakfast: whole Greek yogurt, local honey, and Love Crunch granola. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I just want to give a shout out to Phil Red with his breakfast that he introduced me to. That was really well done. It was veggie sausage, spinach, eggs, toast, and potatoes. And he'd perfected it.
Yeah.
You get the chance to use that. It's like continuity with the channel of judgment. You get the chance to do your perfect meal.
Yeah.
This is your desert island meal, right? You get to kind of do that and make it better and better and better over the years until it's just perfect. Really dial it in. All right, so should we do third color then?
Yeah, let's do it.
The thirst folks. We got cold thirst in the back.
Thirst.
Cold thirst is in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we open it up first. I mean, what behaviors do you notice go along with that? Like, what kind of life experiences have you tracked with that?
Well, I feel with the third color body, I am able to kind of put my body back together, with movement and kind of myself.
She's able to use movement. I'm not sure if people can hear from back there, so I'll just kind of repeat things. But yeah, that movement.
I think the movement is specific to her design you're on, because I looked at her chart recently. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, I can also say from what I've noticed from kind of living with you and knowing you is that right variable is so chilled out and so easy to kind of go with the flow. And then I think cold, for me as a calm digestion, as left variable, I experience cold as very jolting and refreshing and sobering. And so what I would see is that when you get too zoned out, you might do something sobering. You might do a cold plunge, or you might have something like even cold food to me is kind of a wake up. It's a jolt. It is stimulating what is a baseline. Whereas warm, it's kind of like being in a warm room. You just get lulled to sleep. I mean, it's hard to think clearly in a warm room, a place that's too warm. Too warm has a very different effect than too cold. And you can handle very cold rooms. You've handled sleeping outside just now you're sleeping inside. Finally, I was like, I was a little worried. You're going back outside. Okay, she's going back outside tonight. But she's been sleeping outside in like 20-degree, lows, and waking up fully refreshed. It's almost like sobered up from it. That there's something intoxicating about the left variable that kind of lulls us into or calms us or soothes us, because the left is so nervous it needs to be soothed. Right. And I get more nervous in the cold. But
I was thinking about it from the point of view of the atomic level, like maybe cold is less dispersed, it's tighter and more
solidified.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, heat does cause dispersion, and there is. Yeah, that's true. It kind of stretches out things, and cold is kind of tighter and brought in, and of course cold needs
because change and mutation.
And here's the other thing. I do see Rachel having a cooling effect, and so for the idea that cold needs cold because it's running too hot, the way I understand it is actually cold is clinically, it's like nervous. It's like it needs. It's like
it's nervous through continuity.
I don't want to say clinically, but it's like it's in a. Low, it's like low brain waves needs to be turned into high brain waves, or it's low digestive juices need to be stimulated to produce more digestive juices, whereas the left variable tend to have more of the, more high strung, more stressed out, more under pressure.
Yeah, I mean, it's been suggested that through genetic continuity, any right brain would prefer colder things, the dark, lower sound, like there's some preference there, which I do relate to as a right brain. But I think that there is that through genetic continuity, and you look at the right fixed fourth color, nervous touch, I do think that carries through, and I think that you've got that, and then the cold foods and liquids cool you down, you know. So I lived with 2 children that had this. So really interesting. You learn a lot about human design when you live with kids, let me tell you that. Especially these things like, you know, PHS are really fascinating to watch at young ages. So regarding cold thirst, one child who was 8, another who was maybe 11 at the time, both said on their own accord, not knowing anything about human design, for some reason, I just need to go home after school, and the first thing I need to do is have a popsicle. And every single day for years, that's what they did. You know, they still do it, I'm sure. You know, they needed a popsicle to cool down. And they were very much like, I don't know why I need to do this, but this is fun for me. This is what I look forward to. This feels right. So, you know, kids know. You know, you really can see the truth of all this observing children. So, and they didn't need jackets outside in Philadelphia winters, which are, you know, moderately intense and things like that.
Lucita says that her mother, who died at age 98, had third color determination and had to drink boiling hot water with her meals. I've seen this more than any other color of the opposite tones, and I wonder if it's just the thirst aspect of cooking, that there is this sort of wanting things to have been cooked, or I wonder if people just do transfer.
Well, wait a minute. I don't know whether she's speaking to the right or the left.
Well, she's saying that she actually was right.
Okay, so...
Oh, I see. No, I got it wrong. We were talking about cold thirst. In your case, she was left fixed, so she was hot thirst. So that was actually correct.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I see. But I do see, like, people who are cold who will admit, oh yeah, I love cold pizza, but I also drink hot espresso. And I say, why don't you drink an iced espresso? I don't like iced espresso. So there is, I mean, I've seen it.
That's the part I've struggled with. Is
Yeah,
like
I've seen
coffee all the
cold
time.
coffee, right? Well, it's an interesting question, because I do wonder if certain ones, like thirst, have interesting exceptions, because thirst is so much about liquid and is so much about cooking.
Sometimes I'll have like ice cold water with like an espresso drink.
Ice cold water and an espresso
I
is what
think
hers.
we have to remember that we're always also moving to the other side of the PHS. So as a low sound person, I've blared freaking music in my ears too, and gone to a lot of concerts and stuff like that. So there's always that.
Ricky says hot coffee and cold pizza, the perfect breakfast. Or hot yoga and cold showers. So yeah, there is something about thirst maybe that can move between them. I mean, even when you're taking a cold plunge, you get really hot in the sauna first, then go in the cold plunge. Like, it's kind of nice. So, all right.
I also think about when James was talking about like a lot of the right variable fixings. When you were describing it, was making me think like they're all elements of making you turn inward in some way, like reducing stimulation on the outside.
Yeah.
And same with cold, like thinking of a cold plunge, people say like, you know, focus on your breath. Or just,
She's commenting.
Calm down. Like it is a way of just like mastering.
I don't think focusing on the inside is calming down, though. So here's the interesting, maybe where we differ is. So what she's saying is that the right variable
calm is
fixing.
left.
That's what I'm saying. But she's using the term calm and right, because right people are so calm. But saying,
I think let's change the word. So I know what you're pointing at. So when you say calm, you just mean like
turning inward.
Turned inward.
Yeah,
turned
yeah.
inward. But for me, I actually get really nervous when I turn inward. I start to
Continuity.
notice.
Sure. Yeah, it's a continuity.
It's
like
easy
inner
for
vision.
me to be out in the world.
I got to unfocus, go into my world. Yeah.
No, but I also think that there is a really interesting game you can play, which is imagine pre-1781 world, and imagine people going, well, you're so weird. What are you doing eating your food after it's got cold? Well, you're so weird. What are you doing mixing all your food together? Eat one course and then the next course.
Right.
Well, you're so weird. What are you doing eating out-of-season food? We eat the food that's in season here.
Right.
I mean, each
Yeah.
of these are like the norm, and there is something about
Yeah.
variable consciousness that it is bucking the norm, or it's gone
Right.
through the norm and kept going. And
Yeah.
like, what else is there?
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, I think this is the invention of restaurants. You know,
Yeah.
You're the alchemist.
Yeah.
And then one other thing was interesting about both of those children that had this is they aspired to own restaurants. Certainly weren't led to that. They're just like, hey, I really like being in the kitchen and creating things, and it was fascinating to see that.
So there's a question from Nancy.
And Rachel is an amazing chef.
Oh
Third
my
Color.
word! Oh my word! Yeah.
We're very lucky to have Rachel's cooking.
Yeah, the continuity from Third Color between the determination and the environment. You can see the kitchens at work in the determination.
Best chocolate chip cookies I've ever had. Oh my god, mochi chocolate
You
chip
know what?
cookies.
The best is Vaughn has said like twice now. I mean, he like that Indian food you made. He loves so much. He said The best I've ever had. Best I've ever had. Don't tell Rachel. Don't tell her. I don't want her to get a big head. He had this.
Of course he would say that.
He had this whole thing. Don't let her get a big head. Don't let her get a big head. Okay, so Nancy says, question for the human revolution. Why is hot the left way instead of cold, given that fire/electricity developed later? And for Chinese medicine, it's straight warm food/liquid. What might be the implication for the whole cultural orientation to eat warm? Well, for me, it's calming because everyone's so high strung. The reward for all of the cortisol they're pumping through their brains to fucking succeed in the material plane is a warm meal that is kind of like a warm shower or a warm bath or a warm hug. It is the soothing, calming aspect of warmth.
The left, I mean, fire is, I don't know when to date it, but we're talking, when was the invention of fire? I mean, we're talking many tens of thousands of years, 50,000 years?
Well, yeah, and I do think fire and electricity can't be conflated either.
Yeah, they're very different
it's
things.
It's like Uranus. Kind of
electricity is
versus-
Uranian. Yeah.
And we're not talking about fire because we're talking about warm water, right? When we're talking about thirst.
Yeah.
Fire's not a part of it. It's warm in the same way that, I don't know, yeah, like you were saying, being cozy.
But it's calming, and warm food is rewarding and calming to left variable that's so tense. I mean, that's kind of the secret is in the fourth color. And the secret in the fourth color is that calm and nervous cut across everything because the fourth color is part of everything.
Sure. Yeah.
And so it's actually, I've noticed as a calm person that when it's really dark, I'm nervous. I'm like, could there be a spider on my fork? I can't see what I'm eating. There's a certain, it's calming.
And fire and warmth is calming.
Yeah.
Right? Having heat and cold is a little bit more nerve-wracking. It's like, there's a little bit of a tremble, in your system.
Stimulating.
Yeah.
Well, which is also why when you turn the heat up too hot, above 72, people can't think as clearly and their IQ actually goes down. And IQ tests, do an IQ test in 85, it's lower than at 65. Mm-hmm. When you have that little edge, it's kind of stimulating.
Cold helps you sleep, helps you get to the theta and the delta that you need, One of the interesting things is, so I knew this guy that was doing stuff with brain waves, and he hooked me up or whatever. This is like before I knew about variable and human design, but it basically showed that I was in like delta, like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He was like, many people think this should not be a thing. I think it's a right-brained thing to be hanging out in the theta and delta more.
Oh, Rachel's in theta and delta all the time.
Oh yeah, I feel it off Rachel.
By her. Yeah.
I mean, but the weird thing is you meet me and you don't think that, right? Because you're like, he's focused, he's saying something very structured and linear and logical, but
it's your personality. It's not your brain.
Right, but underneath of that, I feel like this. I'm just kind of netting things,
Yeah.
So
there's a comment from Lucita that Genoa said 500,000 years ago at least for fire.
Wow.
And I believe it. I think it makes sense that fire would have been developed.
Sure.
It's not. It's like you develop friction and then you develop fire. So. Yeah, that's really interesting. Well, let's do the fourth color so we can keep
let's
going
do that.
on. That's my color. So
okay. Who else has a fourth color? You do? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there was an interesting point from Ra where he basically said, and he was fourth color as well, that every color has its own melody, and when you're not living your design and you're in your transference, that melody is distorted, like hitting the wrong note. But that once you live as yourself, it returns back to the right melody, except for the fourth color. There is no melody for the fourth color. There is no fundamental way of being. Like the body seems to be the most changeable, along with third color probably. I can imagine thirst, being mutative and so on. But there's photos of Ra from a few years before his encounter with the voice where he's unrecognizable. After his encounter with his voice, he saw his mother. He was unrecognizable to him. She had already declared him dead and did not recognize him when she saw him again. That's the fourth color body. It can undergo such a radical transformation because it can transfer to anything. So, and I see we have a graphic here. This is Mike. Oh, wonderful. Maybe you have some comments, Mike.
Why am I here?
Mike, I need to get to know your chart better anyway, so let's take some time to do that.
Who posted my chart?
Doxing Mike. No. Go back. It's okay. I'm not going to ask him if we have permission because I'm just saying I'm inviting myself to look at your chart. So,
Is it okay, Mike? I don't want to.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
We're generators. We always want a yes from a manifestor, or from a projector, or from a reflector. We don't always.
So Mike his fourth colors both left fixed, right, with his internal determination and his environment, and 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Okay. So you got a few things going on here. So again,
Casey says yes. Let's say.
well, Mike is attracted to heretical people, and Mike has a dilemma around, is life lovable? Outside of a relationship, am I lovable? Do I know how to love myself? Right? Or do I need someone else to show me that love so that I can feel that I'm lovable? And that is very much implicated by both your environment and your PHS.
How do you see that? I mean, is that
10.5.
gate 10? I was going to say, okay, yeah. So
Right.
gate 10, that does make sense. The love of heresy.
Yeah. So you're attracted to heretical people, among other things. There's other, obviously, love implications in your chart. And, as we've been talking about, design Uranus is this mobility, issue. Like, are you Mike is, mid 30s now, is that right?
33, yeah.
33, early to mid 30s. So, I think that this stuff really starts to show up in the 30s at earliest, usually. When I talk to people in their 40s and 50s, it's much more obvious, but it could be inflammatory issues, arthritis, this type of stuff. Emma's
some joint issues.
mobile as I should be. I've underwent that, and I was at a point, because I have this very same situation where I was seeing a chiropractor 2 or 3 times a month, physical therapist, you constantly needed adjustments, all this stuff, completely resolved after a few years with the only element I can see change is really PHS. So Ra claims that these areas, these systems, these processes, these health systems that are being affected, they can really turn around very quickly, according to him. And my experience would attest to that. In addition, again, design Moon, so really underweight, overweight,
Were you saying inflammation because of the Uranus color resonance?
Yeah, that's that. Because you have 2 in that top column, your musculature overall is susceptible, right? That's all solids up there. It's, your joints and your muscles and so on. And so, that's stuff too that would be affected. Design Moon, again, weight issues, and just kind of a sense of like, am I healthy? Like, you either kind of feel like, yeah, I feel pretty robust, I feel pretty hardy, or not, if you're not aligned. Hydration is implicated here with design Neptune, as is complexion. So there's double hydration issues going on there.
It's a lot of 4th color.
It's a lot of 4th color. Yeah, for sure. And I just want to take a look at something. So
you're saying that the second color, Mercury, that's a place of susceptibility because of second color being more susceptible, or did I miss that? You were just talking in the top color.
No, that one isn't implicated, but 2 of the 3 are. So whole.
No, and I see that it doesn't have
row.
any resonance. I was just curious if the second color, I guess second colors and second lines, I just always see as vulnerable in some way, but maybe I shouldn't.
not in this.
Not
particular.
from Magic Square.
Yeah.
Just in general.
So right, and so the skin, Mike, and so you have a design that people can see if you're healthy or not, because you have color resonance with 2 of the 4 gates that are calling card gates. So it's like, and people are particularly going to see it. In fact, let me just say that again. They're exclusively going to see it in your skin, if you're well or not. Right? There's just something off. And it's a weird thing to say. It's a weird thing to say. Mike's looking pretty good today. I think he's all right. But
you're looking
your skin's doing all right, though. You're going to get through it. But it's a weird thing to say, but I mean, I've definitely had the experience of looking at someone and it's just a weird thing. You just sort of notice, like, their skin, like they look just kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Just kind of dull, right? The skin can look dull, a little gray, not as vital, not as plump, not as hydrated, that kind of a thing. So that's how that would show up for you. And again, good old Pluto there with the lung issues, whether asthma or just kind of susceptibility to like lung infections and things along those lines. And because you have 4th colors in both regard, that's true of both your environment and your PHS, all those different areas. So, but you can always unpack it at the gate level as well. You can go down to that level. I chose to just demonstrate that with the 10.5 in Uranus, but you could look at the other color resonating gates. Like for example, fighting for the wrong cause, let's say, with gate 38 there. that kind of a thing. You know, maybe reflexively saying or thinking no before you've really taken it in. You know, just being obstinate. You know, this kind of a thing. So yeah.
I like looking at Mike's chart. I'm enjoying seeing some of the things I didn't realize. Like we both have 28 too, and
Oh, shaking hands with devils.
yeah. And then I did remember that Mike does have 54-4. That was an interesting one for me to see. I'm a 54-3. So.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's. Unless there's any comments in general, I think we're good. Name, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, if there's any comments in general about the fourth color body, I mean, definitely. Yeah, you have some.
Yeah,
Please.
I noticed. I have a friend that she's not really in the experiment, but she's nervous digestion, and when we have kind of an issue, she has to make it bigger so that she can, like what I've noticed is she has to kind of escalate it to process it.
The fourth color nervous,
The nervous,
has to escalate until she can process the issue.
So that's an interesting point. So nervous touch will pick a fight over dinner.
Yeah, totally.
That is something.
And the escalating because it's almost like revving up a flatlining system that's kind of naturally so spaced out. There's like too slack, and so it's needing to like put a little tension into it. Let's get it moving. Let's stimulate it so we can actually process this stuff. It's kind of got to get it started. It's not necessarily started. I'm whirring along, and I need to be soothed and calmed. And it's like get this guy some like flute music, and, you know, let's soothe.
I've often said, let's get this guy some flute music.
Let's get the thorn out of his paw so he's not so so difficult all the time. But that's me. But yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Picking a fight, wanting to have a rousing kind of high energy conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Liz's fourth color, if you want to share anything, Liz, you're more than welcome to. And also, Nancy wants to look at her fourth color, nervousness.
Pull up Nangshi's.
Yeah, would you do that, Nami? That'd be wonderful.
I don't have her birth details. I'm happy to pull it up if she wants to give me them.
Well, you know, I have it. So let me just do it. And then also, Lucita says Hugh Hefner had nervous eating. That's an interesting one. I remember a story from Brian Beard about.
That's so funny.
Nervous eating.
He wasn't in transference because he wasn't busy with one at a time. You know, it's like.
No, but also Brian had a friend who's nervous eating who really liked to eat in provocative situations to kind of stimulate.
Yeah, we should probably not go into that.
Okay. So let me just find.
Actually, Jonah, I've got your document. So give me a second.
Oh, well, I have one that actually
You got it.
that is going to be preferable to James because it is
Yeah, I need to see that.
classic. Could you make me the host again? Would that be
Sure.
great? Okay. All right. Just as soon as I'm the host, it's saying host disabled screen sharing. So as soon as I'm the host again.
There you go.
Great. Right.
All right, nervous touch. It's so interesting because I know Nangshi a little bit as a client and student and colleague that I really respect, and she's so calm. And so, at least that's my experience of her in those contexts, which goes to show, you can be on the other side. So, once again, Nangshi, so you've got you've got a few different things going on here. You have the same configuration as Mike, as a matter of fact. It's design Uranus, again, your mobility being affected, joint inflammation, things along those lines. Design Moon, in your case, could be menstruation, also weight issues, and just the sense of like, am I robust? Am I feeling healthy or not? Right? And then design Neptune, this, am I retaining the right amount of liquids? Am I properly hydrated? And design Venus, which is your complexion, any issues that are manifesting in the skin. So you've got all of that going on. And it's implicated both ways because your environment and your PHS are in resonance. So those are the gates for you. And, kind of tallying that up, one thing is in that far right column with the Moon, Venus, and Saturn, again, only Venus and Moon being implicated here, it's, can I remain centered in myself around other people, or do I get pulled into their trip? right? That's a vulnerability that you have in your design. And then musculature, the solids, up there with Uranus, Mercury, and Moon. Two of the three being implicated. Your musculature, the solidity, the joints, things like that being affected. And then hydration. You have 2 gates in the hydration column. Am I being properly hydrated, which is manifest in the skin. So yeah, you've got all of that going on.
I learned something interesting, which I don't think relates to Magic Square, but it was just an interesting point, which is that Neptune actually was very significant for Ra as a planet of direction. And that was very confusing to me because Neptune I usually think of as illusion and the Maya and so on, but he actually pointed out that it was in the late 1960s when Neptune was in Gate 14. That was a time that only happens once every 100 and some odd years in the Neptune synodic cycle. When Neptune transits Gate 14, it makes the handle for the cross of the Sphinx. So there will be crosses of the Sphinx, 7 or 8 during that time, during that Neptune transit, or 9 or 10, something like that. And those crosses of the Sphinx who were born during that time have Neptune, this planet of direction, powering from the sacral, from Gate 14, the handle of what he calls Neptune's trident, or Shiva's spear, which is Gates 2, 7, 1, and 13. So yeah, it's interesting to me in the Magic Square, it seems that Uranus almost has more to do with direction, but then you've been clarifying it has to do with movement.
It's both. So it's also the subtler thing. When I do a PHS reading, I'm really focused on biology, but the subtler thing is, are you in the right place to meet the right people? That is implicated here. It is that as well on a more mystical level.
Yeah, that's such an important
And I think
question.
that there, part of what you're bringing in too, Neptune is flowing into that direction there from, Pluto up to Uranus.
Well, it's a great point also. I mean, something that really blew my mind reading some of Ra's materials was that the shape of our body, our shape is actually determined by the people and the place where we are. And that, for me as a 4th color, maybe it's especially...
Perfect thing you just said. The shape... Okay, when you've got at least 2 gates resonating in that top column, that is the shape of your body.
Yeah.
Right? That is totally the shape, the design, Uranus, Mercury, and Moon. Shape of your body. Moon, again, weight issues, under, over, what have you, movement. It's very much about your physicality. It's very much about your musculature. Right? So, yeah, good point to bring in.
Right, and the shape of our body also affects the tone of our voice. It absolutely is a part of it. And we kind of sense the dimensionality of a person from the tone of their voice.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can be really surprised to see what they actually look like, having only heard their voice.
Yes.
That happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is great.
Yeah.
So maybe let's do 5th color now, and 5th and 6th color, and then we can wrap up. But it'll be nice to just hear if there's any interesting. I remember that there was a 2nd color person who was talking about how before human design they were very into sound healing. And they were so into the 5th color. And so on the one hand, we can say, okay, transference. On the other hand, I do wonder if the transference does have certain affinities where I've noticed this with environments where mountains have a lot of caves. Caves are often built because of the elements of the exposure to wind and so on that you find in mountains. And mountains environments being driving heavy, cars being kind of famous caves. And I've seen that again. You find a lot of it works for all of them, really. You find a lot of markets in the valleys, the trade routes, and you also find a lot of restaurants in coastal cities where there's a great mix of cultures.
It shows the value. I mean, there's value. The notion here is that transference can fix on the design side. That's the theory. I don't know that we have proof positive of that, but that's the theory. And then on the personality side, it doesn't fix, and that allows the mobility of the mind. Right? And so there is value. It's about getting the balance right. You don't want to be acting from the transference, right? And so when you're aligned with strategy and authority, the whole holistic chart, substructure to surface, operates correctly, right? Then you get the correct expression of your motivation and your view and cognition and all of the things, right? Everything kind of aligns. But yeah, so...
No, that's an interesting point. But I guess I'm just saying I haven't really thought about it as much on the determination side of how damaging that is. Like, finger wagging, your 2nd color, you're transferred to 5th color, or I wonder if there are deep affinities. I mean, there are obviously differences, and I do value Steve Rhodes' observation that the lower colors are lower resilience. Regardless if you agree with him or not, it gives us a framework to describe, okay, we have the second color, lower resilience, familiarity, need a certain amount of familiarity. The fifth color can handle a lot of diversity. And yet, we do have taste in music, and we do have certain commonalities. It's just an interesting thing. I think it's
interesting
worthy of
thing.
more investigation.
Yeah, it's worthy of
So,
more investigation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So fifth color. Who is fifth color here other than myself? We've got. Okay. Just the three of us. Yeah. Do you happen to know if you're on the high or low side, or I can help you figure it out? Here you go.
He's low.
He's low. You're low. Like
Low
myself.
sound, like
Low
Sirach,
sound?
like James.
Okay, all three
like
of us
Vaughn.
are low.
Yeah, Vaughn's also low sound.
Yeah. So what I would say is when I originally entered the experiment, I was operating on a different birth time. And so it appeared that I was a direct light eater. It appeared that I was a quad left with taste cognition. And anyway, I practiced PHS for a couple of years. And then I was like, wait a minute, I'm working with these clients. They're actually having these epiphanies. And why am I not? I just got to this point where I was like, I'm sure that that's not me. I'm firing this birth time, this piece of paper. And then with my mentor, we rectified my time, and all of a sudden, all these bells went off about who I really am. It made so much sense that I have a right brain. It made so much sense because I looked at the color resonance, and we unpacked all the health implications that I had dealt with that weren't in the other time, right? So we could really track it. And the other thing that really started to go off for me was looking at my PHS metaphorically, figuratively, right? And so it's not just about decibels, like I think that people that don't have low sound, they might be like, well, this might be a little bit too loud for you, but it's not necessarily that obvious. Like there is actually a discomfort when I'm in a loud environment at a certain threshold, but it's not what other people think. It can be louder than you might think, but there's a certain point at which I can't be present. I'm just kind of like, oh my God, what is going on here? I just need to kind of like tunnel vision, because I just can't really be present in a really loud environment. And I feel some element of discomfort or stress around that. And that's when I know that's not my place. But it's not just about decibels. It's also about just thinking of like, what is loud? And I'm not sure that I relate this to flavor, but I definitely feel it in terms of literature and film and all these kind of things. Like I like subdued films, anything that's too like loud, explosive.
I think of it as atmospheric.
Atmospheric. That's great.
Whereas high sound people actually love the sound of the fingers moving along a fretboard.
Well,
of
I
the
like
guitar.
that.
Well, maybe you do.
Yeah.
Maybe there is.
But on the low end, not the high end.
Maybe there's just a sound thing, and maybe there's just both sound.
Yeah.
People like to hear the detailed sound, or because that
Yeah.
also, I guess, is an atmosphere where there is a spatial component.
I was a music
to
journalist in college, and I remember writing
Yeah.
about the fingers on the fretboard type of stuff that would come through certain recordings.
Yeah, maybe you just like the bass solo more than the screaming guitar solo.
yeah.
I wonder about timbre, but what I also wonder with sound is its connection to valleys, and the narrow valleys being the proximity versus the wide valleys having a sense of space, or just the importance of acoustic environment. I also wonder if you can be more easily wounded by harsh words, if harsh frequencies kind of they're doubly damaging. The content is damaging as well as how it's carried. And I noticed that perhaps for valleys people as well, even though they may have high resilience, as I've been pointing out, or they're drawn to that at least, that the acoustics are just more highlighted for them. That it's an acoustic thing. Certain voices, you just have a visceral response.
It might be, anecdotally, that might be true. I mean, one thing I can say is that if I don't like someone's voice, like first meeting, if I don't like their voice, never turns out to be the right person for me. Just doesn't.
I'm like that, but I'm very acoustic. So.
Yeah. It could be from individual circuitry, other things, different ways to get to the same place. But, I have a 45-21, so I say I'm too loud for myself, but loud personalities are kind of tough on me. Like I like more subdued stuff, people, art, so
Which
on.
is interesting that that's not necessarily the calm side, but it's like the right kind of stimulation or the right kind of concentration, as you were saying with cold. It's like...
Great vibration.
Yeah, just that it's not... it's just interesting to think of it as, why does the right variable need this? What is it about the right variable that needs low sound? Like it's a real mystery, but maybe, for me as left variable is calm, I notice a lot of things when I'm in low sound. I notice that I can hear breathing. I notice that I can hear sound effects, almost like in a David Lynch movie. There's a little bit of suspense, and that the suspense of anything could happen is actually stimulating in some way, the right kind of stimulation. So it's funny. It's like the right variable. You're saying, oh, I can't have all this overstimulation of high sound, but also the overstimulation is deadening and it's desensitizing and it's a cacophony that actually dulls you and puts you to sleep.
It's hard to be present in those moments.
Yeah, you can't be present in that.
And therefore can't make the correct decisions,
Maybe
which is what this is informing.
Maybe high sound is trying to grab your attention all the time. It's something that's trying to get your attention and make you focus on something. And so the right variable is saying, no, I can't pay my attention to that. The low sound is actually an atmosphere that allows you to exist within that. I also wonder with the continuity, I mean, bass 5, there's a lot of things, tone 5, there's just a lot of interesting stuff. Like, that's almost like the color of tone. It's like, where do we find tone and color? In 5.
Right.
And it's an interesting thing. Like, where is color and tone? In 4. Like, there's these kind of, like, 5 is the number of tone, so wherever 5 is, tone is part of it. Even the 5th line at the surface, communicating through its voice.
Yeah, one interesting thing about 5th color and tone is that the 5th color taps into all of the tones. Right? Now, we all have all of the senses, but the 5th color in a unique way can kind of grab onto the right tone at the right time. And I did a talk about this at the first HDHD conference, and it's pretty obscure, and at the time I didn't have a lot of clarity on how that operated, but like now I can really see that I'm very familiar with inner vision. I'm very familiar with, touch is my cognition, but I'm very familiar with inner vision and feeling, energetic sensitivity, smell, taste. I really have all of these outer vision. I really have that outer vision thing of looking at someone and being like, are they my person or not? Like, I have all of those things at my arsenal, which is a unique 5th color internal determination capacity, just really tapping into all as needed.
And I wonder if 4th tone in their meditation or in their inner vision is kind of like these are like the bridges between tone and color. It's so interesting that color is of the 4 or 4 is of the color, and with tone it has to do with 5.
Yeah. So. Well, and so Ross says something interesting. He says, the 5 connects to the tone, which are strangers. Much like 5s do, right? 5th lines connect with strangers. The color, hey, connecting to the tone, that's the stranger. Whereas the 4th color connects to what's like, hey, we're in our network. 4th color transfers to the other colors, all in its same color network.
I see.
Whereas I'm bridging into the tone.
The stranger from the color.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. 4th color is communal. It's connected to its community.
Yeah. The literal architecture of the crystal, it's the 2nd and 5th colors that like leap across to the other side, the other like far facet of the crystal. The 1 and 4 like spiral clockwise, and 3 and 6 spiral counterclockwise.
Ew, interesting. Huh. Did not hear that.
Thank you for that, Mike. That was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do we think here? I mean, do you relate to being sound sensitive?
Definitely.
Yeah.
But like you said earlier, I also do like listening to loud music, like in the car or
Sure.
something. But
Yeah.
like at home, I like to be very
Yeah.
zen.
Yeah, I think one thing to experiment with is how present can you be? If you're just in a car, mostly we're driving on autopilot. I listen to loud music in the car. It's kind of fun. I'm a manifesting generator, needs to get some energy out. When I drive fast, listen to loud music. But like that's very different than needing to make a decision. And so what we're talking about here is actually how you make decisions. So it's like, I always notice like in concerts, like I felt very like scattered. I was like, I don't really know where I'm at right now. So like just kind of test when the decibels are kind of high, like can you still be present with yourself? Can you still be connected and embodied and so on? Yeah. So that would be interesting. And then, the transference of all this would be eating the same thing every day. That would be bad for you.
Good to know.
I see a look of recognition.
Yeah. So really great comments here. So let's see. We have Liz. She's nervous touch. What we were talking about previously with the 4th color makes her think of how ADHD meds stimulate her brain enough to focus on something. Right, that the nervous touch needs some stimulation. I'm calm and I have so much stomach acid that I need to relax so it stops producing it because it's naturally in that, it's ready for that pressure. I'm ready for the life or death situation. I'm ready for the brain surgery. I'm ready for the rocket science. Like, bring it on. Like, left variable, ready to.
So you're
be
calm and you
highly
have high
competent.
stomach acid.
Yes.
I think I have low as a.
That's what
right
I'm saying.
fix.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Exactly. And I think
Yeah.
that there is a correlation where the left variable in general is more prepared for what's coming in this state of tension.
Right.
It needs to be soothed and relaxed. Flute music. Thank you, Andre 3000 new album of flute music. Okay. So yeah, so for Liz, that is something that stimulates her in what she takes. So Casey asks, what's the connection with kitchens and shores? My point there was just that they seem almost like north and south node, or like primary and secondary, or foreground and background, where you go to shores places and there's a lot of restaurants that are bringing in food from other places, and a melting pot, a mix of different cuisines. And you go to kitchens places like New York City, it would be a very melting pot itself. Well, it's also kind of on the shore, and there's a lot of people that vacation there, and there's a lot of transitional kind of experiences there. So I kind of think of shores. I had a real breakthrough with my deconstruction of shores when I realized the sixth line represents the good life, and so the sixth color environment is kind of the vacation environment, the permanent honeymoon environment. So even though Santa Fe has no shore, it does have some of the shores vibe.
Certainly artificial
Because of-
shores.
Yeah, the people that are coming to visit us here a lot.
And this is a right-centric town, so that would make sense. Yeah.
I do agree with that. So, and then Casey says her son is low sound, but he's the loudest kid except when eating or learning. So he's like loud naturally, but then he becomes quiet in order to take things in. And it does point out that we each have this binary. We have an in-breath and an out-breath.
Mm-hmm.
And a high sound person might be very quiet, and then when they're eating, they're laughing and talking, and they're in this sort of, they like to be in restaurants. So, Lucida says, we've seen the possibility of helping rectification of birth data from colors and tones, especially sun and earth on the design side.
Yep,
Great point.
I do that.
Pocket says her high sound kid, one of his friends' voice will cause his stomach to hurt, or he'll start burping. Yeah, there can definitely be digestive issues in relation to sound for that. And then Lucida comments, one of her friends is a twin. She didn't know her exact time of birth, but her fourth color determination from the time she believed was correct would give her nervous eatings. Would give her nervous eating. It would change to left going back a minute or two, and she really identified as calm eating. So yeah, that's a case where the experimentation and kind of the difference. I've kind of come to a point where I can usually tell the difference where somebody, yeah.
Look at cognition. You know, there's a discernible difference. If it goes back to left with a minute or two, we're talking about the distinction between inner vision and outer vision, right? Those are different eyes. That's eyes like a hawk versus eyes that are like a saucer taking it all in, right? And that's not the only criteria to be looking at here, but I'm just giving you one thing. But you really want to sort it out the cognition level there. And that would be, hey, you know, like I can only eat things that look good to me. My environment needs to be stimulating visually. I'm invested in beauty, the beauty of things. Right? And also, they'll have a weird experience of maybe thinking that they're superficial because there are some people they just don't want to be around because they don't like the way they look. And they don't know why they don't like the way they look, but they just don't. And it's like, hey, here's a permission slip to just trust that. You know, if people look funny and weird to you, it just doesn't look right, trust it. It's keeping you safe, you know? So I'd sort it out at the cognition level first and foremost, and then the color.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, let's just finish on the sixth color. This has been quite a full. Okay, sixth color, lighter.
The only?
Direct or indirect?
Direct.
So Shri is direct. So this is past your bedtime. I'm sorry. You have to go. No, my mom is direct, and she always apologizes for not making it here. And I'm like, you're direct. It's okay. You wake up when the sun comes up. It's fine to not be out after dark.
So how are your hours? Do you find that you get up early? No? Yeah. I don't always find it that nice and neat, but I mean, you could be, again, when we're talking about how we can be on the other side of the same PHS, the correct PHS, are you a night owl? Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's common is to just be on the wrong side of the PHS. Not transference, it's just kind of the wrong side. So you know that light is a factor. You know that time of day is a factor for you. You just haven't settled into what's really correct yet. Yeah.
But I have a hard time with routines, but I do know that direct light is really important for my mental health. Like if I don't have enough sunlight, like I lived in Finland in the winter, so I only had light like 11 to 2. and it was dim.
Can we pull up her chart?
I was so
Is that a-
surprised.
you have
Yeah,
it?
do you have? I have one version. I don't know if I have the best one, but if Name has it, otherwise I absolutely can. It's just
Do you like eating in the sunlight?
I do. I do like eating in
Yeah.
the sunlight.
Al fresco.
I just like being in the sun. Huh?
Yeah. Yeah, eating outside.
oh, I guess we didn't have yours from HDHD. I'm not seeing
Okay.
it in the
Well.
in the shared folder, but
Really good brighter. Is that too dim?
oh,
Well-
the chart Name would be Shri, so SRI, unless was it under a different name possibly.
I don't think I'm in there for some reason.
Yeah, I think you're not in there yet. So we'll get you added for next week, and we can do a deep dive on your bodygraph next week. Next week the topic will be
I was looking at
but
it the
yeah.
moment on my phone, but yeah.
Oh, okay. So we have a couple. We have
yeah, can you make it a little brighter?
Yeah, a little brighter.
yeah, so Cohen Hillawart is direct light, and he lives in Egypt, and he was saying just the UV of just like the brightness and the amount of sunny days can be very helpful.
Yeah, UVs. It's all about UV. I mean, when I first started experimenting, as I said, I thought it was a direct light, and Kamud, who really was Ra's PHS person, said, if you're going to eat after hours, after the sun goes down, eat under a grow light, the type of light you would grow plants, things like that, because it has UV light. So I did this. I had this fucking little grow light contraption that was like pink light that I was eating under.
James is growing.
Right.
You're like, I'm going to grow to be big someday.
So I did this for like two and a half years. Where I was like, screw this. It's not getting me anywhere.
I want a Plant James T-shirt. Design a plant and James has it.
Yeah, exactly. So anyhow, but yeah, you have to be mindful of the transference to preoccupation with liquids, which can look like different things. You have a cabinet full of teas, or you're a coffee addict, or you're into smoothies and juices and
Coffee might be good because it's dehydrating. I've wondered about the relation between light and memory because
she would have the 6 colors have bad memories. So
yeah, but bad from one perspective. But it's like you don't need to remember a lot.
No.
Yeah.
It's not actually bad.
Yeah.
It's
But
just
it's kind of.
it's not what you think.
And I've wondered, like my mom is always worried about her memory. She's like, "Who's that actor?" I'm like, "Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like it's okay. Like you're fine."
Yeah.
She's like, "I'm forgetful." I'm like, "You're fine. You're direct
You don't
light."
remember a lot of things, and so there might be some sort of judgment there of like, why don't I remember this or what have you? But that's appropriate.
Or drinking a lot of water and then retaining water and then being flooded by nostalgia, which could actually
You have
It's like you don't need to
hydration
remember.
issues here, but you don't solve them through mentally signing yourself up to have a certain number of glasses of water. You solve it by eating in the presence of UV light, right? But you're at your best during the daytime. It isn't just about food. It's also about people. It's about circumstances. Like, I don't think you're going to meet the right people for you after hours. It's about daytime activities. You're best in the daytime. The memory implication. What else would we want to say here?
Well, for me, I noticed something really interesting with my mom, and this was after learning Steve Rhodes sees direct light and indirect light as the most highest resilience people. I guess even maybe the direct light even more than the indirect, because the indirect is right variable and kind of takes in more and so on. So direct light being this sort of highest resilience, what I noticed with my mom, who's also direct light, is that her imagination of what was wrong was that she didn't have enough stability or safety or security, but what was actually wrong was she didn't have enough excitement. And being in a foreign country, not knowing how to speak the language, having sort of scary situations was actually exactly what she needed, because the 6th color, high resilience, can survive in the jungle with nothing but a knife and it's kind of like being in that challenging situation where you really come alive because your potential to handle a variety of difficult situations is fully tapped. Whereas having the same monotony of the same Netflix shows and the same couch and the same house and the same day in, day out, that is actually the real nightmare for the 6th color, whether on the personality or the design side. But being on the design side, maybe not noticing it as much and coming up with other.
I mean, I'll say this: being in Santa Fe, which never has a cloud in the sky, apparently, and it's sunny almost every day. That's perfect for you because you're mountains, right? No, you're not mountains. I'm sorry, you're kitchens. I looked at the wrong thing there. Yeah, okay. Well, another thing is you're 3 parts right. The only left part is your brain, right? So there's a real tendency or a susceptibility, I should say, to overwork your brain, to ask more of it than you really have to deliver. And you really got to get the energy out, well, you're a projector. So, but you are meant to be active in your environment. But if you ask your brain to be more intellectual and analytical than it can be during a given day, your brain might kind of spin out and be hard to kind of settle down. It's hard to kind of relax. You're here to have a relaxed intelligence where things kind of, so I'm saying this wrong. It's the left brain that my mind is flipping this all over the place. You are 3 parts right and 1. I can't look at the phone.
Yeah,
Way too small.
No. I'm with you on this. Yeah,
this is like it's all blurry.
You have the same as Sirach, where you have a lot of right and only the left variable environment.
Yeah.
But,
So anyway, scratch what I said. I can't look at the phone and do the reading.
No, and we do have a couple questions, and then we can kind of wrap up unless anyone has final comments on the 6-color body. But this has been a very fruitful, engaging evening. So
Well, the other thing I'd say, 6 colors really stand a lot to gain from PHS, right? Because especially on the indirect side, particularly more so than the direct side, most people aren't getting a lot of their nourishment, in the evenings, and so they tend to be undernourished and really stand a lot to gain when they practice that.
Yeah, exactly. And some even without human design will. I mean, I had a friend who's indirect who would only drink sodas during the day, couldn't bring himself to eat before 3 or 4 p.m., and then he would eat his biggest meal before going to sleep, and his girlfriend would say, how can you sweat all night in your sleep? How can you, well, the solution to that, don't sleep in the same bed, okay? But, but we have a couple of comments. So Liz was asking if indirect light people would have better memory than direct. It's about thirst.
Yeah, it's about
thirst people.
No, it's the same.
Hot and cold thirst, maybe they have more working memory versus cold storage.
It's amazing how, thirst
they
people
do
have
amazing
really
memory.
amazing memories.
Yeah, they absolutely do. And I think it's just realizing that you don't need to remember as much as you might think you do as a direct or an indirect light person. Nancy asks, would 6th color be less impacted by trauma with less attachment to memory? And this is basically a different way of arriving at what Steve Rhodes arrived at.
The resiliency.
The resilience, but also the 5th color. But it's also that we have to understand trauma in a different way, because we don't think it's traumatic to have the monotony of every day being the same, but that's its own, it wears them down. So everyone's being worn down by something. It's just 1st and 2nd color, according to Rhodes, are more worn down by variety and change. 5th and 6th color are more worn down by monotony and sameness.
Mm-hmm.
And that is an interesting observation there, Nancy.
Yeah.
And then Lucita comments that Genoa, 6th color, right fixed, eats his biggest meal at dinner time. And he has amazing memory. Well, that I can attest to. He has incredible memory, and that might be also this, I guess, the right variable is so dependent on what's being pulled out from them. And that is an interesting point about how incredible his memory is for, right. But it's also, I guess, just that if we think of the water content of a person and thirst people needing a lot of hydration, it's so they maybe have a lot of working memory. The right variable of this, maybe the true cold storage is not cold thirst, but is the right fixed 6th color, because it is kind of not accessible to themselves, but pulled out from them, and they get to be surprised at what they actually have retained. That the right variable has such an incredible way to retain information.
I used to compete in memory contests and remembering a couple hundred digits of pi and
oh my word!
Like
well, that is really
a little
interesting.
bit different but when it comes to movie quotes or something, I'm like, I don't know what.
Well, and it could be
Even if I've seen that movie 5 times, I'm like, what line is that? I don't know. It's very selective. It's if I want to remember, I can. Mm-hmm. But I don't. I tend to if it's not important, I just discard it.
I mean, again, part of the journey here is as people decondition the memory, it's not worse. I don't know what other word to substitute for it, but it does diminish. It does operate differently as you decondition. I've had a number of clients who are like, how did they put it? They're like, basically they're concerned about their mental health. They're like, what's wrong with me? I feel like I'm losing my mind here. I don't remember what I used to remember. So it depends where we're at in the journey. And if Genoa was introduced to PHS later in life, there's an extent that will turn around and not, So I don't know. There's a lot of questions that I have around this.
And from knowing him also, I can just say that his incredible memory is this vast right variable of being able to have, I mean, I've had right variable people tell me exactly what I've been thinking about. It's almost psychic.
Yeah.
It's like things that have been relevant to me the last couple days, they just start telling me stuff. And I'm like,
Right.
why are you using all these words that I like wrote in my journal this morning? Like, this
Yeah.
is spooky. And so I do think
Right
that,
is psychic like that,
yeah,
yeah.
that all of the right variable does have access. But I also could see how light people don't need to have that amount of water in their body, where when they have too much water, they might actually be kind of stuck in the past or flooded by associations, and that they actually operate really cleanly without those associations. They don't need to associate something to something else.
It's like it's a sixth thing, right? Letting go, getting beyond, right? Not holding on, right?
Well, and I will also say that from knowing Genoa, that he doesn't necessarily, it's not memory in the way that we would imagine an association of one thing to the other. Like, yes, he maybe is reminded of something, but he also knows how to say things that are very relevant to where the other person is at. And it reminds me of how Rachel described attuning to the other rather than applying a sort of rote pattern. Like, you're not, like when in your example of being a server and not really going by the pattern, but just looking at the actual people at the table and then saying something relevant to them. That's a very right variable thing. Whereas a lot of times the association to memory, like for me, I have a pretty good memory. Base 2 is also associated with mind and memory. I will often just be reminded of something and go, oh, here's something that reminds me of. Doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who you are at all. You've been to this place? Okay, I know something about that place. You're researching this? Okay, I know something about that. It's not about James. It's about the thing you're researching.
Right.
With Genoa, it's always felt very relevant to me and
It's
who
relational.
I am.
It's right.
Same with Rachel.
If it's a
same with
right-centric
Ashley.
variable, it's relational.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this ability to kind of attune to the other
Doesn't
person.
have it on his own, but yes, right. The relational quality.
Yeah, that's something I've noticed. So
Yeah.
Nancy says her indirect daughter Emma has more objective observer view of memory. She even remembers the details, impersonal and detached. She's also sixth color acceptance. For example, she remembers lots of traumatic events, even in her infant stage, but she doesn't feel impacted by it. That's, like it's almost like the amount of water in your body is making you feel the memories more as if they're happening right then in that moment.
I think we have to always consider the holistic context. So, like for all of these examples with Genoa and Nancy's daughter, I'd love to look at, well, what's going on in the stream of memory, right? With the 54, 32, 44, 26, even the 45, has memory implications. So, like, look at that stuff. There's just so many factors.
Yeah. Well, I think unless anyone has any final comments on the six color body, this has been a feast of investigations into the colors. And I'd like to thank James for his first HD Catalyst. Yes, thank you. Really enjoyed it so much. And a really good conversation remotely as well. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Maybe next week we'll have your body graph to look at, Shri, and any other topics.
Or we can do it offline.
But we'll have more. Lots of interesting topics in the works. Really great turnouts we've been having. Last week was like the biggest turnout yet, and this week is kind of on par. Really
Nice to be with you all.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you all so much.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Liz. Thank you, Lucida. Take care.
Good morning, good night, good afternoon.
Thank you. Thanks, Ricky. See you.